What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Magic Hour. I'm Curt.
I'm Paul.
And today we're covering the movie Midway.
A movie where the good guys are so annoying that you openly root for the bad guys. Banzai!
Banzai!
Oh my God.
Just an excuse to drink sake.
No, I actually felt for the bad guys in this movie.
It did give a new perspective to it because
They didn't treat the bad guys as like comic book villains or something. You know,
just humans that were being forced by their government to do something.
Right. In fact, the movie starts in Japan with the character that Patrick Wilson's playing, Edwin Layton.
Right, he's an intelligence officer.
Yeah, and he's having a conversation with Tamon Yamaguchi. Wasn't that the guy?
Yeah.
But they're discussing what would happen if the Americans didn't concede oil rights or whatever to the Japanese. They were going to have to...
It was tariffs, yeah, that were being put on Japan, where they were limiting their ability to get oil.
This is very good. It's Fuji apple sake. Hana Fuji apple sake. If you're interested in what we're drinking, I think we should announce every week what we're drinking.
Yeah.
Because I've been told that's one of the things people like about this show. We openly partake.
We consume adult beverages. Well,
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to say I'm a huge World War II history buff. I love studying it. I've watched probably every documentary I can find on it. Watched all the good movies. But unfortunately, from time to time, no matter how much money, what was the budget on this thing?
$100 million.
$100 million, most of it CGI. They missed the mark, man, because it was like a soap opera to me, you know, that had some action sequences in it.
Like a porno to me.
Yeah. Yeah, once you hear
because I went into this not knowing anything about the movie, how they made it, whether the characters are real. Because sometimes you'll watch these historical World War II movies like Red Tails. I don't think any character in Red Tails were like real. They just made them up for it. But they used the backdrop of the...
That was World War I, right?
No, that was World War II, but it was the Tuskegee Airmen. They used the backdrop of the Tuskegee Airmen to tell the story, but I think every character was made up. So I went in there not knowing that whether they were made up or not, and then we get to this character called Dick Best. I was like, is that a...
Yeah.
That's got to be made up, right?
Hey, if you went into this movie and the only thing you knew about it was that name, Dick Best, you'd think it was some kind of like porn movie.
Exactly. But I was like, that can't be a real guy. But when I came home, I looked on Wikipedia, I read Battle of Midway, and there was a guy named Richard Halsey Best, and everybody called him Dick. So,
yeah, at the end of the movie, they talk about, you know, what that person actually did after the war. And
so just about every character in the movie was real.
Yeah.
But
I knew Nimitz and all those guys, you know, because of the study I've done. But
I didn't think the pilots and stuff were going to be real. The guy that got to play Dick Best, Ed Screen, I think I didn't even bother to see how you said his name. He was supposed to be this cocky pilot, but I think he was laying down.
He's a maverick. He's a Top Gun.
Well, that guy he's playing actually was a legend. Because I thought some of the things in the movie were made up. The fact that he attacked 2 Japanese carriers in one day.
Successfully sunk 2 carriers. The only pilot to ever do that.
Yeah, that actually was real. I was like... One thing I like about the movie, they went through pains to show you how often the Americans missed. Like the submarine was there was a submarine Nautilus that was trying to shoot one of the Japanese carriers. They missed. There was a bunch of times where torpedoes just hit a boat or a carrier or a ship or whatever.
And just didn't explode.
And didn't explode, to show you just how defective American armaments were back then. And that happened throughout the war.
And that's another thing about this is that when that happened, America really wasn't prepared for a prolonged war.
No.
We had the oldest airplanes. A lot of our ships needed repairs.
Yeah.
We didn't have much of a standing army really to speak of at that point. They were starting to take steps because they knew something was coming, but we were able to, which it shows the perseverance of the human spirit, and going into a fight that you're outgunned and out engineered. That part of the story came across on the film, but it was so bad because they spent so much time like covering relationships, and I just didn't understand in this big massive cinematic movie why they kept needing to do that, because everybody who had sailors fighting had somebody at home.
Yeah.
So it just, that's another place to me it missed the mark.
Mandy Moore looked good though. She
did. But did you notice even her acting was like, it was almost like they were trying to play like 1940 actor-esque.
Felt kind of like a PBS special.
It really did, man. It was not.
I liked it. I'm not going to say I hated it.
I'm not going to say I hated it either.
But yeah, it wasn't.
But are we doing justice if we're not critiquing it?
Yeah, no. I know what you're saying, but at the same time, I didn't go in with any expectations. So I was like, oh, okay, that was interesting. I didn't really know the story of Midway, like at all. I know a lot about the German or the European side of the war. I don't know much about the Pacific. So,
yeah,
most of that stuff was new to me.
Like I said, I'm a student of the World War II on both theaters, and both the Pacific and the European sides of the war, because the war started with all the other countries, but America stayed out of it. The war started in 1939 when Hitler and Germany Hitler came into power because the German people were so upset about losing World War I.
Yeah.
They felt that they got mistreated with the Treaty of Versailles, and so they were prone to follow somebody who wanted to get payback. And that's exactly what Hitler was doing. Is he hated. He was a soldier in World War I, and he hated what had happened, and he hated his German leaders for throwing up their hands at World War I.
And the liberal governments. Sound familiar? What was it called? The Social Democrats?
Yeah, they were fascists.
The Social Democrats were?
Well, no, Hitler and his people.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying they were using some of the same rhetoric that I've heard recently. As for the liberals have, they blame they had that stabbed in the back lie where they perpetrated the idea that it was the liberal government that lost the war, when it was really the military. The military was asking the government to get an armistice because they were about to lose. But Hitler spread this lie that it was actually the government that forced the military
and I'm in belief
to concede the World War I. So,
and I'm of the belief that if you get radicals from either side of the aisle that get more power than the others, that it's a recipe for disaster. The way that we move forward is meet somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
And anyway, with this movie,
there was a lot of things though that I didn't know. I just did not know. I didn't know, for instance, there's a scene in the movie where they bombed Tokyo. Now this is like right after Pearl Harbor. Mm-hmm. Like, what, a few months or something.
It might have been.
They were just.
It was very soon after.
Yeah, they sent a whole squadron of bombers to bomb Tokyo. I didn't know about that. I really didn't. And they were so far away from an airfield, they had to ditch into the China Sea, right?
Yep.
And then they were helped by the Chinese when they.
Doolittle was his name.
Jimmy Doolittle, played by Aaron Eckhart. He was actually pretty good.
Yeah, he was.
Probably the best acting in the movie was Aaron Eckhart.
Yeah, he is a good actor.
But everybody else.
I mean, like it had Woody Harrelson in it.
Woody Harrelson was pretty good too.
He was as good as the script let him be.
He kind of. I was like, I wasn't sure who he was playing when I first saw him, because he looked like John McCain. And I was thinking, is he playing John?
Wrong war.
But listen, John McCain's father was an admiral. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
He was a big time admiral
in World War II.
I don't know if it was in World War II. I know he was an admiral though, and I was thinking, is he playing John McCain's admiral? Because he looks just like John McCain. He had the white hair, and then I said, oh no, he's playing Nimitz. But yeah, John McCain's father was an admiral.
Yeah, and Nimitz.
He was born in the Panama Canal because his father was stationed there.
Yeah, and Nimitz was put into power, or given the role of running the entire Pacific Fleet, and because of Pearl Harbor, because of the people before him were fired because of the absolute debacle with the intelligence.
Yeah.
And so he was put into that position, and he was on the ship in Tokyo Bay where the Japanese signed their surrender. So he took it all the way home. Nimitz did. And that was a terrible, terrible fight, man, because the Japanese fighters were unbelievable. But you know what I found out today, and this is just a little interesting tidbit, that there was the German soldiers during their attack on France would go 3 days of fighting with no sleep. And everybody's like, well, how are they doing that? Well, come to find out, German pharmacists had come up with this little pill called Privacid. Mm-hmm. It was crystal meth. And they were handing it out like candy to the German soldiers.
You know, Hitler was on amphetamine, so.
He was probably on that Privacid too. And I think that's the name. I might be getting that wrong, but it's something along those lines. But they were all geeked out on crystal meth. That's why they were able to fight so good and have no like emotions, and it was pretty crazy. And the Japanese used to do something similar, but they would eat some kind of root or something that would get them high, and it would make them fight like crazy.
You see a lot of armies through history doing that, though. That's not at all
performance-enhancing drugs.
Yeah. You're going to die anyway.
That's on a deadly level of performance-enhancing drugs. That's probably, too, why you'd have to shoot them 10 times for them to fall down.
So John McCain's father, he was a United States Navy admiral who served in conflicts from the 1940s through the 1970s. His father was also an admiral.
Oh, that's a long line of... And McCain was a pilot, right?
McCain went to the Naval Academy.
Yeah, but he was a Navy pilot.
Yeah, it says the son of a naval officer, McCain, this is his father. He grew up in Washington, D.C. and graduated from the U.S. Naval Academy in 1931, after which he entered the submarine service. During World War II, he commanded submarines in several theaters of operation, was responsible for sinking several Japanese ships, and was decorated with both the Silver Star and Bronze Star.
Oh, wow. So he's a real deal.
So, yeah, I thought...
I would highly encourage you to...
There was a lot of history.
If you don't know the history of World War II, it's very interesting. And it had the people that came back from World War II, I mean, aside from, you know, how bad that black people were treated, you know, that was awful. But that generation came back and built America.
Yep.
You know, because before the war, we had just suffered a Great Depression. And unfortunately, the war pulled us out of that. because it created jobs. It sent soldiers off, who were, the women were in the factories building the equipment. The men were over there getting a check from the government. So that was 2 income households at houses that before barely had one.
And really what accelerated and this is crazy because what really accelerated our growth was the GI Bill, because it put a lot of those soldiers that came back got a free ticket to college.
Yep.
Of course, the black ones didn't, but all the white ones.
Well, I stated that. Aside from how bad, and it probably wasn't just black people. I mean, the Japanese Americans were treated horribly here. They were put into internment camps because.
But that GI Bill, there's so many of the of that generation that came back and they became doctors and lawyers and engineers and all of that, and giving out free education actually accelerated our growth in a way they could never done. And now you got politicians out there talking right now about free education, and you got a lot of people.
Well, and the need for advancements, technological advancements during the war, that people just had to figure stuff out.
Right.
That pushed us technologically into the future. The rocket came from World War II.
The jet engine.
So many medical advancements, processes in the surgery.
Nuclear bomb.
Well,
Let's not forget about that. Nuclear energy. I'll just say nuclear energy.
Yeah. The nuclear bomb was one of the negative side effects to what comes from the technology. But, dude, I mean, there were projects in World War II where they would strap incendiary devices to bats, and they would release them in Japan. And then these bats naturally will fly to roost underneath the eaves of these wood huts that are all over Japan. And then these bombs would go off and burn whole villages down. They would use animals for all kinds of crazy stuff.
They did that in Korea too. They said they burned so much of North Korea, it was ridiculous. But yeah, it felt like some kind of PBS special documentary. Every little thing in the movie, I was like, did that really happen? And I went to Wikipedia and checked it. Oh yeah, that happened. Like there was a scene where John Ford was filming.
Yeah, I remember that.
He was on Midway Island filming the attack.
And that's true.
And I was like, did that really happen? And then he got shot in the shoulder. That really happened.
He got shrapnel in his shoulder.
Yeah, it's like, really? I had no idea. So there was a bunch of stuff that I just did not know about.
Well, I thought it.
And when there was a scene where those Japanese officers go down with the ship, that happened.
Yep, that was very common with them. I mean, because they were all about honor, their honor and protecting it, and they made tremendous mistakes during that, and that was just the way the Japanese culture was. If you make a mistake, you're most likely going to pay with your life.
You're supposed to do seppuku, but I'd rather go down with the ship than seppuku.
I don't know, because going down with the ship,
that's like
a slow death, right? But they did hit it with 2 torpedoes at the end, so
true.
I'd be making sure I was standing close to that torpedo.
I didn't know they had cracked the Japanese code, the communications code. I didn't know that. That's another thing it kind of exposed me to. I know I've seen movies on Enigma and how they had cracked Enigma, but I had no idea.
Which gave us the personal computer.
Yep.
So there's another one.
It was kind of the foundation.
What
later become.
Absolutely. I mean, of course, they didn't make the personal computer, but they created computing.
Yeah, everything we enjoy now pretty much came from that war.
Yep. Our ability to look up recipes is all because of the Enigma. The Enigma Project, wasn't that what it was called? Good movie, by the way. What is that actor's name who played in that? The British guy.
Benedict Cumberbatch. Cumberbatch.
Sorry. Cumberbatch. Yeah, Benedict Cumberbatch. Yeah, that's a good movie. Was that called the Enigma Machine, or what was the name of that movie?
It was called What was that movie?
Well, let's see what it was called.
Yeah, you have your computer.
But
The
anyway,
Imitation Game.
yeah, Imitation Game. That was right.
Because
You're faster than Google.
he wrote a article about AI, about how can you determine whether something actually has sentience, like an artificial intelligence, and he had a what they call the Turing test, and the Turing test was a criteria to judge whether something was sentient. So that's what the Imitation Game, because the theory is that you could program something to answer questions like, because I think he proposed the Imitation Game through a test where you ask the AI questions, and it was thought that you could pretty much create a set of answers that would mimic intelligence. But so he proposed this other criteria where something like that.
I got you.
He proposed a set of criteria to determine that no, this is really something that has the thing.
There's logic.
Yeah, in a logical way, and for it to be sentient. So that's what the whole Turing test is about. And the guy didn't get any kind of credit for his thinkings because he was gay.
Because he was gay, yeah.
Until recently, of course. But yeah, I thought it was interesting from a historical standpoint. What score do you give it?
I'm going to go down to about a 2.5.
2.5.
I think that's the lowest I've given a movie thus far.
There was a lot of everything was CGI in it, but it was pretty good CGI. There was a couple of scenes where I was like, ugh, that CGI is not working.
Where the soldiers were running on the top of the aircraft carrier. Remember that at the very beginning? It was terrible.
There was a wide shot of a bunch of ships, and you could tell it was CGI. And I was just like, yeah. It was just one of those. It was one of many shots. A lot of those shots were pretty good. Well, I liked all the dive bombing shots though. That was very entertaining.
I will give that. That was probably the most intense.
You had to have nerves of steel to be a pilot back. And another thing I found out from reading. 70% of pilots died in World War II.
I mean, it showed it in that movie because
if you were
20 would leave and 2 would come back.
Yeah, if you were a veteran of the Air Force back then, you probably were injured at some point, and that's how you survived.
Or you worked a desk job.
No, I'm talking about people with actual experience who came back from the war and were able to tell you.
There wasn't an Air Force. This was all Navy then.
Or whatever. Anybody who had any kind of flight experience, who had stories to tell, was probably wounded at some point, and they just took off the roster, and he survived because of that.
Except Dick Best, never got a scratch.
Oh yeah. But he did get his lungs.
Oh yeah,
he did get injured with his lungs.
Yeah, he was caustic acid or something.
Yeah, there's a scene where he's breathing oxygen. It's actually something else. And that actually happened to him.
Yeah, it was like the bottle was improperly prepared.
No, it was a little bit different. They made it seem like his bottle hadn't been properly prepared. In actuality, in real life, this is one thing they actually changed. He breathed in some I guess they call it caustic acid that comes in oxygen tank. He breathed in the first few puffs from the oxygen was of this acid. And what happened was it triggered he had tuberculosis, a latent form of tuberculosis, and it activated that tuberculosis. That's what happened.
Oh, okay.
And tuberculosis destroyed his lungs.
Did he die from that?
No, he lived to 91.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You see, that's another thing about a lot of these veterans. They lived.
If they made it through the war, they
lived a long time in their 80s and 90s.
Hey, Ray, my grandfather-in-law, he was 94, and he was sunk twice. He was in the Navy, and 2 of the ships he was on were sunk by the Japanese.
Yeah.
No, German U-boats, sorry. They were both sunk by German U-boats, and one time he floated in the water with sharks for 3 days. So, but he lived to be 93.
Yeah.
94.
Something they ate ate or whatever. I think food was better back then or something.
Absolutely, it was better. It's
Like-
coming
like-
straight out of the garden, man.
We didn't have all this junk food either.
I know.
But
I just wonder. I wonder how this generation of people would do in a world war. I think it would crumble so fast.
what would crumble so fast?
Just everything. Society would crumble, man. Because, but I don't know. During 9/11, during 9/11, this country pulled together like I've never seen before.
Hey, we've been in war. We've been fighting wars since 2001.
I just worry about the millennials when their phones stop working.
Man, I'm thinking about there's some people that have grown up, like my daughter, who's grown up and never known anything but
My daughter too.
But these cell phones, these multi-touch cell phones,
and where everything that goes wrong is a crisis beyond recognition.
Man, if you take away her phone, boy, you got a fight on your hands. And that's their life, man.
So let's just hope that we don't end up going to war anytime soon.
Yeah. But on the whole, it was an interesting movie. I wouldn't say it was the best war movie.
By far.
It actually opened up pretty big, though. It's beating Dr. Sleep.
Hey,
which I liked a lot more.
The whole theater was full of middle-aged white people. So it was like the baby boomer generation.
Yeah, there was a lot of old people in my theater too.
And I think they were even disappointed.
a lot of white hair in that theater.
But if you want to see a good World War II movie, Saving Private Ryan. Band of Brothers is an awesome series from HBO, but you can get it anywhere. I think it's even on Netflix.
Yeah.
I know for a fact it's on HBO because they produced it.
Yep.
There's both sides of the theater. You got Band of Brothers, which follow the 101st Airborne. Then you got the Pacific, which follows the Naval Fleet and the Marines that fought the Japanese side. And since you don't know nothing about the Pacific, you need to watch that series. Yeah. And it's very well. They're both done by Spielberg.
Yeah.
And
I saw Band of Brothers.
Tom Hanks is involved in both of them.
Yeah.
He's not in them, but he's a producer, I think.
Yeah.
And when you get Spielberg and Hanks together on a World War II movie, it's going to be phenomenal. And especially if you get Hanks to star in one, which is Saving Private Ryan. So those are good World War II movies. What's bad is both of them that represent the initial attack that brought America to the war, Pearl Harbor, and now Midway, were both bad movies to me in comparison to those. So make up your own mind, but I would not waste the $8 to go see this in the theater. It's not good enough to make it, need that big screen.
Yep.
So that's all we got for today, guys. If you're still here, please remember to comment, like, and subscribe. And
till next time. We will see you when we see you. Thanks for watching.
See you guys.